Hey everyone, this is Meg with another, I guess, first impressions video on Silent Hill Downpour. I say this because I haven't actually finished the game yet, but I'm about 95% through the story, so this will be a proper review, but I can't talk about the ending or anything of that nature.
Revenge is a long, treacherous road, isn't it, Mr. Pendleton? Where do you suppose it ends?
The basic story is Murphy Pendleton, who is a prisoner, is on the move via a prison bus. There are lots of other nasties on board, and it fails spectacularly en route to its destination, crashing just outside of Silent Hill, and that's where the hell really begins. The story, I think, is ambiguous so far, but not masterfully so. There's a lack of real subtlety thus far, I think, kind of like this is Silent Hill for dummies, in the sense that there's ambiguity, but you don't really have to think too hard about it. I get the impression that instead of risking really ambiguous characters, sets, and plot devices that people aren't necessarily going to understand until the very end of the game, things in game relate very obviously to elements in the story we've already picked up on. Everything is right there on the surface for you. Now, on the character front, most of the characters don't really stand out to me too much, and the ones that do are never in it very long. There's a mild spoiler here. I'll put a time slot that you can fast forward to if you want to ignore it. But one of my favourite characters was the radio station guy. I mean, not only did I love the idea that he was trapped for eternity in this station tower by the management, but he was a genuinely likeable guy. Too bad he was only in it for all of 2 seconds, minus his little auditory appearances here and there. Murphy is interesting. I loved the voice actor they picked because he didn't sound like he was acting. Most of his dialogue is being said to himself or under his breath, which I thought really worked well in identifying with the character. And then when he's interacting with other characters, the way he speaks is quite flat and stilted, which I thought worked incredibly well at establishing this guy isn't particularly personable. Cunningham is like Yul Brynner in Westworld. She never lets up. And I don't know much about her still, besides the fact she has a real bee under her bonnet about Murphy. So my overall thoughts, Downpour is like Silent Hill for beginners in the story department. It's like a Dick and Jane book. There's ambiguity there, but I'm not sure it reaches the higher level we saw in, say, Silent Hill 2 or even 3.
As I go to sleep, he's always there. I start to weep. Close my eyes.
Gameplay offers glimpses of greatness, but I feel it still falls short in some areas. Firstly, I love the inclusion of last generation style survival horror formulas, picking up random items and combining them, creating your map through exploration, etc., etc. Secondly, there are some really original side missions and devices within levels. For example, there's one side mission called Turn Back Time, which sees Murphy solve a family massacre in ways that you wouldn't expect, trust me on that. There's another great example, it's a spectacular moment when Murphy plays or acts as stage production for a reenactment of a Hansel and Gretel play, which really is very unusual and offers some very unique visuals and ideas. Puzzles were really great, I felt, and offered a lot of challenge. They required you to think and pay attention to things you've seen and picked up. And third, despite the somewhat basic combat mechanics, it works seamlessly compared to last-gen survival horrors. Now on to the bad. I don't know if this was just me, but there are a lot of areas within the game that I couldn't access or revisit for seemingly no apparent reason. In one instance, I've been using the underground tunnels after feeding, clothing, and entertaining a hobo, only to find that I couldn't access said areas because of locked doors. Even if I'd just come through a door, I couldn't go back because it was suddenly locked again. This didn't sit well with me because it felt more of a mistake than a necessary element. On a different note as well, while exploring the town, whether it's pouring down with rain or not, there isn't a wide variety of enemies to fight. Now this wouldn't have really bothered me if you didn't spend so much time exploring the town, but even if you progress through the story and discover new areas, you'll find yourself fighting the same kinds of enemies over and over again. So much so, I was actually having flashbacks to Final Fantasy XIII, which can never be a good thing. Now, I don't want to sound dramatic here. There were areas in the game that had a lot more, or a bit more variety, like the archives, which arguably flowed a lot better. Sadly, though, I can't say the same for the entire game. I had severe frame rate issues around autosaves. In one area in particular, I couldn't even pass through a door because it was so busy autosaving I couldn't even select open. In another area, I passed by a specific door, and every time I did, the game itself froze. Now, it only froze for a few seconds, but it's enough to make exploring certain areas absolutely maddening. All in all, this game, to me, is a good play.
Prisoner secure. Open 302B. Transfer.
The graphics were great on a whole, I think. Although over time they gradually started to feel a bit less impressive, but I'm not sure if that's because I was getting used to them. The graphics still maintained a dark atmosphere though. I liked that they retained that fog-like mist around the rain, because I really think the fog from previous titles said so much about the series, both physically and metaphorically. The water was impressive, especially the puddly roads that were left over after rainstorms. Looked very Red Dead Redemption, very realistic. What really impressed me though were the textures and the overall design of the environments. I liked the European kind of influence. I thought that was quite unique. And they really put so much detail into it that it felt like a place that could actually exist. My one main issue with the graphics though would be the monster. Not designs, just the monster models. I felt they were a little too simple. They didn't have anything complex about them visually, and as a result they felt kind of out of place to me.
What the hell's going on here, Rex? What is this place?
The soundtrack, which I mentioned in a previous video, really manages to reference the Silent Hill scores of before without copying them outright, and this is huge to me because just think about how iconic Akira Yamaoka's work is. It would be incredibly difficult to not mimic what's already been done. If I'm honest, I think the composer should get mad props for what he's created here. But on the other side of it, there are sort of soundtrack songs that play throughout the game on the radio. I really liked those as well because they're a sort of Alan Wake blend of oldie goldies and very somber alternative pieces, so it's nice to play the game to. As far as the musical score goes though, there are some very distinct tracks that stood out to me and I think sit alongside the classics quite well. One being the Hansel and Gretel record is absolutely beautiful. The Corn theme, I really enjoy it, I'm not gonna lie. And the Downpour intro. Honestly, if the soundtrack treatment had been given to the entire game, I think we would have had a runaway success on our hands. Overall, I liked the game. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't have that addictive quality for me personally, although there were some real glimpses of greatness there, as I said before. But if I were to sum the whole game up in one sentence, I would say it's Silent Hill for beginners. If you haven't played any of the games beforehand, this might be a good introduction for you, but for me, having played Silent Hill 2 and 3 and 4, this just doesn't, it's not as impressive. It doesn't quite measure up, it's not quite on the same level. So thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please feel free to leave your comments and opinions about this game in the section below. I'll see you all in my next video, which will be a trailer talk. Until then though, I'd like you to post as many questions you'd like to ask me for my 5,000 subscriber video, in which I want to say a big thank you to everyone. So if you have any questions, be sure to personal message me, leave them in the comment section, and tweet me, Facebook me, whatever you feel you need to do. Ask me those questions. So yes, I will see you next week. Bye! For beginners. Silent Hill for beginners. Silent Hill for beginners. Pop apple pie. I keep doing that thing where I'm leaning forward because I really want to get to know you. Yes, thank you. We're muting you. A hair flip. Murphy Pendleton, who is a prizzer? Kakadoodoo-wee-wee-poo-poo. I'll just do the rest of the review like this. I'm sure you won't mind. Licht, or is it licht? Like, as opposed to k. Formulas. Why are you making noises? Shush. I didn't know it was recording. That was my, are you recording face? You probably can't hear it because there's a crow outside and it's like, God, what it was doing.